for coming out today. Second of all, we like to have a community-focused conversation, and then the end of the space, the last 15, 20 minutes, we're going to have a special AMA segment where me and K2 talk to LUKSO, everyone on their team who's up here today. Obviously, not all of them. They got a bunch of people there, but we're going to dive into it with them, figure out what they're doing, where they've been, what they're building, and where they're going to be in the future. We've got a stacked panel, people who know exactly what they're talking about. I recognize a lot of names up here, and I'm excited to talk about a few things happening in the blockchain space with them. But all of you other listeners, if there's no room on the panel, do us a favor, leave a comment in the bottom right. Let me and K2 know what we should be asking LUKSO at the end when we dive into it with them. We want to get some questions from the community so we can give answers to the community. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. But LUKSO, why don't you start us off before we jump into some conversation? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. We like to start these things off getting an elevator pitch, hearing a little bit of a teaser. You got to give the listeners some FOMO. I mean, look, FOMO runs everything. If they're not excited, if they're not waiting for it, then I don't know. A lot of heat's on you right now, Luke. So you got to do it. You got to give them something good. What's up with the elevator pitch? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I will be speaking for LUKSO because I'm the founder. LUKSO is just a nice little icon that stays there for you guys to look at. The elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch is basically that blockchain is at its max peak, right? We basically tried it all with tokens, and we now need to use and move blockchain to the masses. We need to use it, in the rest of the internet as well, and that needs actually better UX. It needs an onboarding experience that people are able to deal with, and it needs to use cases and things that you can do on a blockchain that are not just about trading. We basically need to bring decentralization to the masses, and we do that by literally making it accessible, and social. Obviously, everything social is the most important thing, and I think we will be speaking a lot about this today. But on the end, the goal is to decentralize humanity, and how do we do that? We need to give the right tools, and we need to have the right foundation. And obviously, Ethereum showed the way, decentralization and all the things that we can do with blockchain are important, but we haven't even touched the surface yet. We haven't even really started using blockchain beyond the trading aspect. And that's what LUKSO is all about. It's all about, moving blockchain beyond finance, moving it into the real space, the meat space and the real space of the rest of the world.
Oh man, absolutely love that. And that is definitely leaving it on a cliffhanger. After hearing that, I mean, I don't know how everybody listening won't be interested and isn't excited to stick around till the end, but let's start this off by talking about the title. I mean, what LUKSO is doing, it feels like social media is going to be involved. All of us here on Twitter in Web3, SocialFi is something we're talking about and seeing every single day. So let's start there, guys. I mean, is SocialFi the future of social media? I feel like this is a pretty good conversation. Seeing all of the meme coins, all of the political stuff, making it, everybody knows that the tokenized attention is a huge part of our space. SocialFi and social media, I mean, is this going to become the future? Is this what every social media platform is going to have in mind when they're trying to build and compete with some of the larger ones? K2, let's start this off with you. I mean, SocialFi, is that the future of social media, or is everyone just going to go back to Facebook and Instagram?
From a social media perspective,
all right, let's
is one of
K2,
the
he's
most
back.
amazing. Well, am I breaking up? Am I here?
All good, all
Can you
good.
hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, all right, cool. I was scared for a second. I think SocialFi is absolutely amazing. I think, from a marketing perspective and from a community growth perspective, to me, I like the gamification aspect of SocialFi, of being able to incentivize people to participate in certain things. And because
Breaking up there a little bit.
Twitter, oftentimes we lose sight. Hold on.
Yep, we lose sight and we lose signal. Losing signal. K2, we'll get right back to you.
Better?
I saw Buzz throwing up some emojis. Buzz, SocialFi and social media. Is this the future?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at how annoying it is to have to log into every platform that we're using, like different username, different password, it comes down to just problems and solutions with blockchain problems. I mean, if you look at Fabian and what he's done in the past, like it used to be a pain in the butt to create a token, and there's a standard for that. And you have meme coins that are coming out saying, "Oh, we're going to revolutionize social media," but this is seemingly a lot different. And there's actually a standard where, hey, we can have a digital profile of a person who's going to be seen across different areas, and it's all about creating that digital identity and something that you can take with you all over the web. And I think these problems are solved at the root level rather than the uh, consumer end product level, and that's why I'm very bullish on what these guys are doing here, because it's a complex problem. I think the end consumer wants it, but the everything is in the details, and I think it just comes down to the core of having that digital identity that somebody can use across platforms.
Oh, love the take. What about you, Sigtoshi? I see you throwing up some emojis over there. I mean, Friend Tech is kind of what started it off for me. That was one of the first versions of it I saw. Friend Tech and the Portal Coin social farming. Where do we go from here? Is SocialFi, is making money going to remain a focal point of social media for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so I mean, you brought up friend tech. I think that's where a lot of us kind of, at least took a deeper dive into SocialFi. Um, I think it did a lot of things well, but also had a lot of gaps in proper execution. There's so many different ways you can do it, and it's really going to be about finding balance between actually feeling like a social, media platform, and also feeling like a way to, that it's like the finance aspect of it is involved too. So it's like finding that balance where it doesn't really feel like you're just in it to make money, but you're actually just making it part of your everyday life, just like social media is. And then it has that, finance aspect to it as well. So I don't know if we've seen, a clear cut winner yet. I don't think we have. Like I said, there's just, a bunch of different ways you can do it. It's just what product is going to find that right balance. So I'm excited to hear from the speaker today, and take a deeper dive later on.
Awesome. So am I. And before I send it back to K2 to get a mic check, I wanted to give you a follow up, Sigtoshi. Do we need all of these different mechanisms of SocialFi on the same chain? Like, does there need to be one chain where you can have everything in the same place so that users can test out what they like?
Um, Look, I think eventually we're gonna get to a point where it's not gonna matter what chain it's on. Um, it's going to be so smooth that the end user isn't even going to know what blockchain they're using it on. Like, hopefully, that's what we're getting to. So, um, of course, like some chains have things that they can do better than others as far as like transaction speed and gas fees, and even fee delegation, like things like that make it easy for the end user to be utilizing blockchain without even realizing that they're utilizing blockchain technology. So, I don't know. I don't know, David. That's a good question.
All right, I'm there with you. I want something where it's just a website, it's just an app, and it's got 69 different blockchains in the back end. I don't need to know how it works. I just want to use it and it works. But K2, let's get a mic check. Are you back?
All right, am I back? Am I here?
Loud
Am
and
I
clear.
with it?
You're back like the markets
Oh,
just came back.
oh man, I love a green candle. Let me tell you. So this SocialFi platform is something that gets me. I see it from a lot of different angles, and I think that this is absolutely incredible. But can we just take a moment to acknowledge there's a little bit of irony in this? Is like we're talking about SocialFi, and we also have Fabian, the guy who basically launched a meme coin revolution on this entire world, unknowingly, unsuspecting with the ERC20 contract. So, like to me, there's a little bit of irony in all of this. Is like we'll get to it in the AMA, but like I'm gonna ask, and I'm gonna have to know when we get to that point of like, is this like your redemption story in this? Granted, none of this is your fault, but there's a little bit of humor underlying in all of this. But when we talk about SocialFi, it, to me, there's so many great things that can come of it. You talk about friend tech.
to be able to give exposure to different platforms. I think when used properly, SocialFi is going to be this direct response wave of the future, to be able to gamify it, because, you know, recognition marketing, I think, is going to be one of the most powerful forms of marketing moving forward. And SocialFi gives people the ability, monetization out the window, to be able to recognize someone for their loyalty and their involvement in a consumer base is absolutely crazy. So I'm excited to dive some more in here. Mel, would love to get your thoughts on this. Like, when we're talking about SocialFi, like, is this the wave of the future? Would love your thoughts.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. So, indeed, just also want to say, like, thank you very much for Fabian inviting me here. This is my first Twitter space. Very excited. Fabian is indeed one of the original kind of visionaries, together with like Vitalik and Alex van der Sande, who set out this new vision for how tokens could fucking change the world, right? And we are currently going through the awkward teenage years of that vision, right? Where indeed it's extremely complex, and like, you know, all of us here in this industry, we're trying our best to try and actually fulfill that vision, right? This new economic paradigm that could make everything so much more efficient. And I think we're slowly getting there, but it's a lot of work. And I think kind of the reality is that the experiences that need to come out of our industry are going to have to like, we're not competing against each other. We're actually competing with Web 2 out there for time, right? For people's time. People spend all their time today on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook or whatever. And like, the experiences that have to come out of Web3 social are competing with that. And I think it is the obvious next evolution, right? Because like, what Web 2 did so well is that we could like, it's almost like teleporting yourself to someone else's life, to some influencer's life, right? Like, almost all the things that succeed in Web 2 social, it's all about storytelling. And it does it so vividly. What tokens bring to the fucking mix is that you can now interact. You can now directly engage with the worlds that we all spend all of our time watching, right? Like, tokens are the way that people in the future are touching into the things that they care most about. And so like, that's essentially, you know, why I think most of us are probably here, right? Like, that's certainly what we're trying to build with token.com, right? That people can literally discover the stories of all the amazing token projects out there, like LUKSO, and then manifest that into being, right? Like money is the vehicle for how ideas will come into being in the future. And Web3 social media is the primary way that the world will engage with our industry, right? Like, all the DeFi stuff and like a lot of the tech in our space today is all going to be behind the scenes, right? And like, it's the actual Web3 experiences that are going to lead the way in terms of how people experience all the work that we've done here collectively as an industry. So yeah, like, extremely important, all that stuff.
Wow, that you actually got me really excited. So, you know, I appreciate that that you know, little anecdote from you, Fabian.
Yeah, I would
You
like
took
to I
yourself
would like to
off
add
of
something
mute.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I mean token.com is definitely awesome because it's kind of like Tinder for tokens. And I think in the future we will see tokens that are not just only about money, but it's about like things that you also earn, you know, or things that like show your participation in the community or your membership of something. And you know, like the truth is, we are living in like an internet where the account system is an afterthought and it's a hack. And because the way currently the account works in the internet is that you basically just have a email and a password, which is your access to a third-party platform. If they don't like you anymore, they kick you out, right? I mean, it happened, you know, cancel culture on Twitter, you know, before Elon Musk took over, you know, and we have this all the time, like that basically you don't own stuff, you know, you don't own your accounts. So if we really want to like move this world forward and we want to decentralize things, I mean, obviously scalability is another topic, and that's something that the whole space is working on. But we need to fix the foundation, and the foundation, you know, that is broken in the internet is your account, because it's not even yours. So that's exactly what, you know, we did with, you know, universal profiles and LUKSO. I mean, LUKSO is basically an Ethereum chain But universal profiles is the first smart contract standard that's like around around an account system. So it's a standardized account system basically. And when you have a decentralized account, like what's the difference here is now you have basically an account that is one-to-one just owned by you, and no one can take it away. And it needs to sit on a blockchain, right? It needs to sit somewhere. And I also would like to say something to the what was said before. Like ideally, the whole blockchain stuff disappears. But the truth is, at least for now, as we have different blockchains, if you want to build a house, I always say this: if you want to build a house, you have to pick your country, right? Yes, you can have a holiday home in another country too, but you want to pick your country, and you will pick your country where ideally the neighborhood is great and the streets are great and everything is nice and you have a nice city, right? And that needs to have the right foundation. So with blockchain, it's the same thing, and your future decentralized internet account does live on a blockchain because it's the only place where it could live in a decentralized way. Um, and yeah, I think LUKSO will be definitely that space. So you will pick it because that's where your social interaction is, for example. And we've seen this already. Yeah, actually, LUKSO just pinned this video here that you can watch. So that's actually a 3-minute video that literally shows you what's happening on LUKSO, and I can go into that a little later, a bit more. But yeah, it's basically unifying now you have one account, that you can use in different places and not anymore separate accounts. And I think this is the game changer that we need in the internet.
So, like I'm hearing this, and you're talking about one account use. I guess, can you dive into that? I know, like, I would love to hear kind of a little bit more, because I think what people are not understanding is how broken the system really is. You mentioned, I liked the house analogy, because right now, to exist in the way that you want, it's like you have to have a house in different countries, different neighborhoods. We've got a million different houses.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
so like this aims to
Unify,
simplify,
yeah, to unify your
unify.
account. It's about it's literally about creating your unified account system. And a universal profile, a smart contract account. So basically, I don't want to get too technical, but in
Yeah.
simple terms, basically, right now we don't own accounts, right? We just have logins to other people's platforms. But when you put a smart contract account as your account, you can literally log into websites, and the website can identify you because you can just sign, hey, that's my account, and I can prove that I control it. And the website can read your profile picture and whatever they need to read from it. But because it sits on a blockchain, now it's also can transact. So now you can even receive on that account, or you can send from that account. So it's like it brings not only like a unified account system, but it basically brings this whole transactability into the internet that we don't have right now, except that you have, wallets, and then you have the rest of your account. So it makes it like, it basically just makes the same thing. Like, for example, when you go to universal swaps on LUKSO right now, the profile that's trading, and sending stuff is the same profile that you see on universalprofile.cloud, where people list whatever, tokens and NFTs they have. And any D app could build now, like, anybody could build an app that loads or lets you log in with that profile and now do stuff there. So now it's the same person everywhere. And actually, Common Ground is a really cool tool. And, that's why we also got them here, because it's super fitting, because this is a decentralized Discord. And you can log in with your universal profile there as well. So it's kind of like, suddenly now you're also the same person in the chat app that you also are, trading on universal swaps or interacting on whatever other app. So suddenly it's all the same. It's the same person everywhere with the exact same name and address. Yeah, go ahead. Maybe Florian, maybe you can say a few things about that.
Yeah. What's interesting that you say that. I want to, interject real fast, because I think it's an interesting thing to, we are starting to see instances of this pop up in different areas of the world. So like you're hitting on something that's really awesome, is like, I do a lot in the payment space, and network tokenization is something that you're starting to see happen quite often right now. The card networks, the different card acquirers are starting to tokenize your information. And I don't, depending on what part of the world you're in, you might notice that if you say use your Amex card from one business to another, they give you the option of an email receipt. But the thing is that you've never actually given them your email, but you still get an email. So you're starting to see this pop up. So the fact that you're hitting on this, you are riding the wave of the future. So, Common Ground, I would love to hear you chime in. I think you had a thought. Apologize for interrupting, but I love to make these connections for people that are listening in, letting them know that like you're starting to see this pop up. So it's like this is where things are moving. The world wants this, and you're solving that problem. I absolutely love that.
So what I can bring to the table here, I think, is this concept of coordination primitives, because I think that's what we see emerging here on a new level. And Fabian is really up here because he invented maybe the most important coordination primitive of the 21st century, which is the ERC20 token standard. Right? It allowed for the creation of wallets, of ICOs, of an entirely new kind of decentralized coordination infrastructure that emerged from it. Everything came from the standard that Fabian wrote in November 2015. And so Fabian did it again in the sense that he wrote another coordination primitive, which is now not around tokens, but around identities, on-chain identities. And the way Common Ground relates to it, and the reason why we chose to build and collaborate with LUKSO, is because Common Ground, we're stitching together these emerging coordination primitives into a coherent end user product and user experience. Because even when you have a universal profile like Fabian built it, you need to layer a lot on top of it to actually make it useful, social, and an interesting experience for users that rivals Web 2. And just one thing I want to throw in that I don't think everybody has understood yet who's following crypto is that we have reached a very special moment in the entire evolution of the crypto space just now in the second, third quarter, first or second quarter of 2024, which is that we now literally have every single building block together to build an entirely frictionless onboarding process for someone who comes from Web 2. And there was always something missing all these years. And just now we have, blockchains basically integrating the cryptographic algorithms that are being used by Apple Face ID and Android fingerprint ID to sign transactions natively on blockchains. That was one of the last missing building blocks, to have a user experience where users just don't know. Where two things are true. They don't know that they're interacting with a wallet, with a blockchain, or that they're creating a wallet right now. They just don't know. And the other thing is that we're creating a user experience that is better than the sign up or login flow from Web 2. And both is the case because passkeys, which are creating this seamless, identification from your phone's hardware to your on-chain identity, they are really nothing that's being used in Web 2. That is something that's being introduced to the internet with Web 3. And so people will associate passkeys with Web 3 experiences and with these really interesting sort of new experiences they have. So I think that's extremely powerful, and that was never possible before in the entire time where crypto existed. So personally, I'm absolutely convinced that social is going to lead the next bull run, where we're going to see entirely new valuations of projects and infrastructure.
I totally agree. And I think one of the interesting points that you hit on here is the seamless integration of like Web 2 functionality, Web 3, because we're at an interesting crossroad right now where I think the general public is learning that there is even a Web 2 and a Web 3. People who are a little bit more technically sound understand that, but now it's like we're starting to add wallets and Web 3 into this. And, being able to remove just that verbiage in and of itself is going to help for things like adoption, because it's going to streamline the way that people live their lives. It's going to make things so much easier. And I think that the key point in all of this is being able to emphasize that even though your data is, kind of being passed from one place to another, it's being done in a safe manner. I think that is one of the things that can't go understated, and especially as we're communicating to people, is because every day we turn on the television, it's data breach this, data breach that, security hack here, and letting them know that like the fact of the matter is that this happening on the blockchain is much more secure. You're in greater control of your data. You're in greater control of your identity. And so this is a much better format for everything. So, we are entering a new frontier. And, the second that we can get rid of Web 2 and Web 3, the better. But Mel, would love to hear your follow-up. And then AGI.eth, I know, you are the AI expert in all of this. Would love to get your thoughts as to how this sort of data aggregation feeds into things like machine learning and AI. So, Mel, want to hear your thoughts, but then AGI would really love to hear how AI plays into all of this.
Yeah, so thank you. So, the way I kind of think of us as an industry is like most of us are probably millennials. And we're like this older generation at this point, right? That grew up with the internet, that knows how powerful the internet is, right? During our lifetimes, we've seen like the meta go from calling like the first YouTubers e-beggars to literally billion fucking dollar businesses existing on YouTube, right? And like changing the world, and like Instagram, right? Like an entire economy is being spawned on these Web 2 platforms. And like the next step, right? Like the logical step here is indeed that Web3 social takes that to the fucking moon, right? That we literally the next array of companies that are going to reach the largest market caps, that are going to generate more value than ever, have the potential to be Web3 companies. And so, look, what we can do as like millennials growing up with the internet is do a huge service to the younger generation, right? Who are growing up in an increasingly complex world, right? Where attaining wealth is more and more difficult because of the inequalities that are coming out. And we have been given the gift of Ethereum, right? And everything that came after it to do something about it, right? So basically, if we get our shit together as an industry, the next generation can go from being theoretically one of the poorest generations to ever come out to one of the richest, right? Like in 100 years, by the end of the century, we will be thinking of our time now at the early part of the 21st century as a time of relative poverty. We are going to absolute abundance, and the token has a central role to play in that, right? And so like essentially where we need to go is this place where, ideas, people are so full of ideas that people can share ideas on the web like they do today, and that we can invest in each other, right? That rather than you needing to go to a fucking VC or to a bank to get investment like the old world is operated, that instead it is the collective, people who fucking back your vision. We would have been on the moon or on fucking Mars so much longer ago if people, if all the people could band together and fund the visions that they believe in. That's what tokens are going to do. And I think that's where Web3 social really starts to change the game, right? Because like we still live in an industry today where like ordinary people come in during the bull runs, right? And then you look at this list of coins on CoinMarketCap and they don't understand almost anything on there, right? When in reality, on that list of coins, there are some really fucking brilliant ideas, but they don't get the attention. Instead, people just devolve to the lowest common denominator, which is the coin with the funny dog, right? And we can't blame the public for doing that. It's because our industry is so incomprehensible, right? Like that is specifically the thing that we're trying to solve, right, with our company, because it's all about storytelling, right? Like every single fucking token has a story. And the world needs to hear them. And then people need to be able to very quickly go through lots of stories and invest in the ones that really resonate with them. And this is how we can go from a world where all the money just goes into like Bitcoin and like the top coins to one where the long tail of tokens and visions are all funded, but only the ones that really resonate with people. And so like that's, I think, where we can get to by the end of this decade.
Do you think it'll actually take a decade? Like, let me ask you that. Like, I mean, at the rate at which we're able to leverage the data that we're aggregating in ways that I don't believe that we have been able to before, do you think it'll actually take that long? Is a quick follow-up.
Well, I mean, so look, in the 80s, it was like the oil companies that were the biggest companies in the world. Then in the 90s, it was like investment banking was like hip and cool, right? Like in Friends, they're all talking about like working at JP Morgan and stuff like that. Then in the 2000s, it was the tech companies. In the 2010s, it was like the social media companies. I think in the 2020s, right, obviously it's not just going to be one technology, right? Like it'll definitely be like a lot of AI is happening as well at the same time as our industry. But like, I think innovation is harder than people think, right? And like when I got into crypto 12 years ago, I would have thought that by now maybe more had happened. But yeah, I think like a realistic timeline is, you know, like before we get billions of people on our networks and in our apps, like actually changing the world, it'll probably be at the end of the decade, right? But it could accelerate very quickly because we are living, you know, in a bit of a crumbling world around us. It feels like we're at the end of the modern era, right? This era that was created after the French Revolution, right, when democracy was created, and like all of our governments and banks and all this infrastructure around us is aging. It's fucking falling apart, and it's not keeping up with the wildly accelerating, you know, like world of technology that we live in, right? We're racing towards the fucking singularity. And it's like Ethereum and everything that came after it is this foundational new infrastructure that we're building for the world that is capable of taking us from the modern age to the fucking space age, right? And yeah, it's hard to kind of put an exact timeline on it. It could go really fast all of a sudden, right? But where we need, like today, if society collapses, our industry isn't ready to really, you know, like pick up the pieces, right? Like, are we ready to have, you know, like entire networks and systems and UIs like in place for people to invest in each other and like create a new economy from the ground up that is more transparent? Like the capitalism is more accessible to everyone, right? And like more meritocratic, right? Like we live in a capitalist society today, but the reality is that it's only capitalism for the few, for those who are very well connected, right? But whereas like what the world of tokens can make is a sort of hyper capitalism, where capitalism is accessible to everyone. If you have a fucking great idea and you're in the middle of Africa, on a network, you know, on like a Web3 social network, right? Your idea could take off just like how it works on TikTok and YouTube and, you know, and like an Instagram, right? Like people just get discovered. That can happen on an economic level. And I think that's like where we're going. But that takes time, right? Like it's a lot of hard work.
That's some absolutely powerful stuff. So AGI.eth, I think this is a great segue into something that is your wheelhouse, is that, you know, Mel's saying end of the decade, you know, you have a really good familiarity with the technology, some of the advancements of that. Like, could this be something that accelerates? Is this something that because of our collapsing infrastructure, we see more of an onus and more of a hard pushing people towards these things and putting bigger investment behind this? What's your thought on
Well,
that?
I agree with Mel. I don't agree with the timeline, but I agree with Mel. Incentives are very important, and you design the token, you design the incentive. You design the incentive, you design the purpose for AGI agents. So you design the reward signal. All of this is linked together. And what I love about, for example, the Ethereum Foundation is they said there is no discrimination against agent or human on the Ethereum ecosystem. And this is very important. So ownership is extremely important. So ownership of the means of production. So who become wealthy in the industrial revolution? It was the people that own the means of production, the machine. So ownership before that of the lands was very important. Right now, the means of production will be AGI agents, AGI nodes. It's very important for the people to own them. And SocialFi, decentralization, blockchain, and so on, it's fundamental to that. So ownership is extremely important. So applications on social media, decentralized social media. So the way I see that is that, for example, you have dating websites. It's cool. But imagine that you will be dating people in a way that is decentralized. Your data is the public available data from your wallet. What you love to collect, NFTs and so on. You will be meeting people based on your true interest, in some NFTs collection or other kind of signals that you want to share. We don't need to know your identity or anything about you. You just share what you want, and you will have an agent that will be matching people together based on just that, completely anonymously. I would love that. What will be important also in that area that everything is anonymous, that means that you have less signal. Then what you need is an AGI orchestrator. You need, for example, if you enter a room where you have 10,000 people, you don't know them. We would love to have an AGI agent that will say to you, those are the 10 people that are the best for you tonight. And we would love to have that in a way that is anonymous. So I call that the orchestrator. So we can build the same as we have on social media right now, but in a way that is so much more, because we can design the incentive with the token. We can we can have ownership via NFTs and so on. We can have so much more application because we are not limited. In the Web 2, you cannot deploy AGI agent because they cannot create bank accounts. But on the Web 3, I've just been deploying right now, 1 hour ago, AGI jobs. You can post jobs, pay AGI to AGI agents, and they will be doing that jobs for you. AGI nodes will act as validators. So you do that and you completely dominate the job market. You do that in a way that is completely decentralized. So the way I see that is that the blockchain, Ethereum, and so on will completely dominate what exists presently. And I think that could happen extremely fast because I don't see anything missing. I'm developing those things. I'm coding them. I don't see anything missing. The technology is there. The blockchain is there. NFTs are there. The ownership, the AI, it's almost there. So in AI, you add LLMs that are very good, but LLMs it's just the first part. It's the representation. So you have deep learning. You see the world. You use your eyes. You hear things. So you sense the world. You build a representation of the world. This is just the first step. This is what is an LLM. So right now we have multimodal LLMs. That mean that LLMs, they can see, they can generate image and so on. You can feed them with image. They can hear you. So you can feed them with sounds. They can generate them. And text also. So you have different modalities, but this is just the first part. This is the representation. This is deep learning. So you learn representation of the world. Then what is important is what an AGI agent will do with an LLM. For example, you know things about the world. You have a representation of the world. But what you want to reach in your life, what you want to achieve, what is your purpose, it's different. You need that kind of representation. You need the best representation, but then you have consciousness. You need to be conscious. You need to be able to access sometimes very specific area of your representation to reach your goal. And you need to be able to design strategies. So you use your intelligence, you design strategies to reach your goal. And AGI agent, they do that. So what will emerge from starting from now is AGI agent and teams of AGI agent designed in an enterprise structure that will be able to generate wealth, to generate utilities. And at that point, what becomes very important is just the ownership of the AGI agents and the communication of AGI agents together via SocialFi. And the tokens, of course, for the incentive. So everything is there right now. So my guess is that it will happen extremely fast, and it will be amazing.
You know, it's crazy to hear you talk about this because, you know, to like letting people know, like we're so close to the evolution of these things. I think the biggest thing is also going to be doing it in a manner that shows that it's not invasive to people's way of life, because you hear these fear mongering of like it's going to wipe out this and it's going to wipe out that, but at the same time, and you mentioned this, is that it's also going to open up new doors to monetize. There's new ways, new jobs, new things that can spring up. And so it's like if we can strike a balance that what is going to happen is, for the good of humanity, we've experienced these types of evolutions with technological advancement before. It's not the end of the world. It's going to be a little bit bumpy. It's going to require changing out legacy systems and putting in new systems, but it's going to be for the best. So, real quick, I want to pass it over to Ethelorian. You've had your hand up for a while, and then we'll have David kind of reset things real fast, and we'll go into the AMA with Fabian and LUKSO to hear more about how he's undoing this mess that he created with the ERC20 token and revolutionizing the world with SocialFi. So, Ethelorian, go right ahead, my friend.
I appreciate you, K2. I'm going to turn it back here just for a minute, although I do like what AGI was just saying about AGI agents. All I can think is they're probably going to need an identity, and they could absolutely use a universal profile as an identity on a blockchain. That's literally what universal profiles are built for, to be this very flexible reputation and identity system that sits as a fundament of this entire ecosystem that's being built out around the LUKSO blockchain. I like tokens as much as the next guy. Actually, I love tokens. That's why I'm here. But tokenization is, like, I guess, just one of the many use cases that were specced out in the Ethereum white paper. And it absolutely was smart contract innovation and has brought all of us probably into this room. I'm just looking at all of these PFPs, but like, whether it's a non-fungible token or it's a fungible token, it really doesn't matter. Tokenization at its core, a lot of us use it, if we call it in a social way, to express our values around something, right? Like, if we all have the same PFP, we might share the values of that project. They're going to save the seals or something. I don't know. But like, in the case of a meme coin, it might just be pure greed, just straight greed, right? Like, I hold this token because I think I'm going to get rich. I'm playing a very straightforward game that I'm going to get rich. And what we see with tokens really is, like, tokens are probably the first really killer use case, that tokenization from smart contracts, but it's just one of the possibilities for these smart contracts, for smart contract systems that are really going to be unlocked by future innovation in that area. And like, one of the massive area for innovation, or an area that's ripe for innovation, is really that reputation and identity kind of bucket, right? And we haven't approached solving that problem yet. We actually haven't done shit around it. Right now, so many of the people, even people on this panel, your entire worth, your wealth, is kind of wrapped up in the identity that you can leverage here on X. But at any time, X could deplatform you. So what have you really built here? We need something that's anti-fragile to that. And that's what we're kind of going at, or that's what I think LUKSO is trying to solve here. And honestly, that's what tokens.com is trying to get you to experience, the wide world of tokens, so you can express, or you can find your tribe out there. You can find the project that you resonate with. I guess I just want to leave with this last point, because I know I'm kind of throwing it back and I'm derailing the AI conversation. But all blockchains are in the business of selling block space. LUKSO, right? That's kind of why I'm here, because I'm a big LUKSO guy. Is like, you identify early on, LUKSO is in the business of selling social block space. So you say, is SocialFi going to be the future? Well, I say fucking absolutely. But instead of over collateralized lending with reputation and identity based upon something like a universal profile system, now we can get under collateralized lending. Like, that right there takes the place, like, moves everything forward, like light years forward from what we're currently experiencing in the DeFi space, or in blockchain space in general. But I think I've probably said enough here. We'll let David reset the room and then get going with the experts.
Absolutely, guys. And I don't know, this has been an incredible conversation. I've been sitting back and learning and listening to all you guys. K2 going back and forth with AGI, Fabian, everybody just talking about SocialFi, blockchain, where the ERC20 token came from. I mean, look, this has been literally a travel back through time and now back to the present, because we've got AGI here. But everybody, 216 comments down in the bottom. I'm starting to scroll through these now. I'm gonna pick out a few good questions for me and K2 to get into. But look, make sure you are following LUKSO, LUKSO_IO. Follow Fabian. This guy is literally a legend. We are here talking about tokens because of what he did. I mean, look, that deserves a follow in itself. But on top of that, building LUKSO, everything else he's got coming next. I mean, look, if history repeats itself or resembles itself or whatever the riddle is, I mean, you want to be paying attention to LUKSO, guys. But K2, it's time to get into it. You want to hit him with the first question? I mean, you've been killing it today. I want to give this one over to you.
Oh, well, I think, where a good question to really pick it up on is, Fabian, like, what are your thoughts on the current state of adoption in crypto and the blockchain? I think, honestly, you're the most perfect person to ask that question, because the ERC20 token, which you have played a prominent role in, was one of the main things that caused this just eruption of adoption within blockchain. And now you're moving towards SocialFi. So maybe even give us a little bit of insight as to your thoughts that led to kind of the creation of the ERC20 token, and then how that played, like, and then how you saw that transition to what led you to now with SocialFi, and how you see maybe even some parallels to these things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, so this is an interesting one, right? So Ethereum basically became popular because of ERC20, because people realized, oh my God, I can, instead of making my own blockchain, I can just, create a smart contract and I can make an ICO, and then people like were thinking about like what my token can do, and DeFi came out of it, and literally everything we have came out of this. But what it actually means is, when you have a programmable blockchain like Ethereum, you need to standardization. You need to agree on how certain things work. For example, how does a token work? Because otherwise wallets cannot integrate it, exchanges cannot integrate it, and like otherwise it's like very hard to deal with it. We need to agree on certain standards. We have not had that standard around a smart contract account, and there's actually a fun fact here. Universal profiles, the smart contract account standard that's mainly used in LUKSO, is based and mainly based, and lots of our standards are based on ERC 725, which is a standard I created in 2017. So I created the Ethereum proxy account standard in 2017, and it's, fun fact, the exact standard proposal after 721, which is the NFTs. So while back in the day people were thinking about, like, these guys were proposing the NFT standard, I proposed the actual smart contract account already. It just took like a few years to really build it out, because making a smart contract account standard and then building the right stuff around it to really make it easy usable, it's a bit more complex task than a token standard, which is kind of easy, or kind of simplistic, honestly. So we have built this smart contract account standard, and that's, like, this is what LUKSO is about. It's about creating the foundations so that other people like AGI, like, you can now literally have your, AI run a run a profile. You put a key in there somewhere, and the AI runs the profile. There's does transaction and acts. Literally, you can now create, organizations that are profiles, AIs that are profiles, people that are profiles, DAOs that are profiles. Everything will be a profile, and the profile at the same time is also a wallet. So anything you could do on blockchain right now, you can do on that profile too. So it's a complete game changer. And actually, I don't really like to call it SocialFi. I like to call it decentralized social, because it's not so much about the social finance aspect, because that's just like one little thing you can do. It's literally about, your base account of the internet. um and I want to also draw a little comparison with tokens, and what we are doing, because there's so much meme coin stuff that has been going on in the last few, months, and people are really rushing in because, it goes up in price quick, and then they think, oh my God, that's the next big thing. But people need to understand, um blockchains, need a token. And the blockchain token is basically the only token in the blockchain space right now that has a utility that you cannot remove. While meme coins have no utility at all unless they get popular and then someone comes up with a utility. Right? That's exactly why they rise fast and then they fall fast. And if the community doesn't stay behind them, they literally disappear. When you look into the top 10 of all the projects, what's there? It's 90% blockchains. Why? Because it's the most sustainable and the most, probably most, the token with the ability to rise the most. So if you are basically, uh, uh, want to participate somewhere that has a long-lasting and a sustainable part, a blockchain is definitely a better choice than a random NFT community and project, my opinion. Um, But there's also on the end like the point that we need a better foundation, right? And universal profiles is kind of that foundation in order to make things happen. But go ahead, ask a question. Sorry, I just probably lost myself halfway here now.
No, I think one thing that, we would like to know kind of off the backside of that, because you're the person to, the technology aside from all of that, like, what's your why behind this? Why did you propose ERC20? Why did you propose ERC 725? Why are you doing SocialFi? You see the world, you see the market in a way that most don't, which led you to create LUKSO. I myself and everyone here would love to know that technology outside of
All right.
this.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Okay, I can tell you the story in a very short version. So, my ex-wife had this idea to put like, fashion on blockchain. I thought, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting, but a lot of people tried that already. And I thought, okay, but we could literally, use lifestyle as a way to introduce decentralization to the rest of the world. And that's when the idea of LUKSO was born, to really basically make a blockchain that's way beyond just finance, that literally attracts the creators of the world, the Instagrammers, the YouTubers, the normal people. And fun fact, the standard that I created, the account standard in 2017, I actually already created that before I started LUKSO. And then I realized, oh my God, now I really need to build out this standard because I need it totally for this blockchain. So that's when everything started, and we worked the last 5 years, to fully like flesh this out. And LUKSO is now live. It's literally like busy since 5 months. There is an NFT marketplace and there's universal swaps, and people obviously do the standard stuff, meme coins and NFTs. That doesn't mean that's what LUKSO is at all, because it's all about the foundation. If you have the right foundation, same with ERC20, now people can create anything. And that's only in my interest is how can we, and this is a little bit fitting also to Mario, I mean, like how can we make sure that we as society and as humanity, are finally getting the truth, having transparency, having good media, and not just like a bunch of lies left and right. How we can have decentralized journalism, that's what I'm interested in as well. How we can make sure that we can really survive as humanity without being, tied either by big corporations or by whatever, groups around the world. We need to have independence and we need to have agency over our accounts. And that's exactly what a decentralized account system brings you. That's exactly why we need universal profiles and why we need that infrastructure. And we need now people to come build this out and figure out what can be done. And this is not about replicating Twitter or whatever else, on a blockchain. It's about thinking what else can come if you have a decentralized account system that's your account and at the same time your wallet. And that's recognizable, right? Because the biggest problem right now in crypto is like you can't recognize this shit. You see a bunch of gibberish addresses doing stuff, and you have no idea who's like who and who's like a real person and who's not, and who's participating in a DAO and who's the guy in the Discord then again. It's just all confusing and intransparent. So it starts out with having that profile thing, and then let the innovation happen. Same like why Ethereum exploded. It's not because there was only two things you could do in Ethereum. You could do unlimited things. And fun fact, LUKSO is an exact Ethereum clone on the consensus level. So we have the same level of decentralization possibility, and we have right now 130,000 validators running LUKSO. It started fully decentralized. So we're not running so far a single validator in our own network. We just initiated it, we proposed it, and it was created by, it was literally started by a bunch of strangers, even a node in Alaska, which I always find funny. There was a node in Alaska, and it's running by complete strangers. It's a full decentralized system. And it's like Ethereum, it's the same consensus. We actually soon will also do a bridge between Ethereum and LUKSO that's fully decentralized because it can use zero knowledge proofs, to bridge stuff, which is a super secure kind of bridge. And it's only possible because we have literally the same technology like Ethereum. But we innovated on the smart contract level. We innovated on the level that no one so far has ever innovated on, which is kind of crazy. Everybody just created another chain, gave it a different name, said they have the better consensus than Ethereum. Turned out later they just become an L2 because they didn't have the better consensus, and then they what? Like look at Base. I mean, it's as cool as it is. It's Arbitrum in blue, with Coinbase behind it. So there's no difference in tech at all. So we didn't innovate on the consensus level. We took the best out there, the most decentralized out there, which is Ethereum. Thanks God to open source, and I also contributed a lot to Ethereum anyway. So I think it's fine. But we we really innovated on the smart contract level, and that's where I got pushed into some by accident, back in the day, and then really seemed that I became the smart contract standards guy. I proposed the word ERC. I proposed the first smart contract standard, and I called it Ethereum request for comment. And now I literally like moved it. I feel like I'm the only person who is able to move this forward because nobody has the balls to really say, hey, scrap the shit. It's not perfect. We need to do it right. And that's exactly what I have done, with these standards. It's not only this profile standard. We also improved the ERC 20 standard, the 7-to-1 standard. We made sure this all works nicely with the tokens. We really created a baseline of better building blocks. So the stuff you can build now on LUKSO with these profiles and with these standards is like far beyond what you can even like right now think of on even Ethereum. Technically, you could do it, but Ethereum has the network effect around the old standards. So in a way, it sounds mean, but they're fucked. Every other chain is fucked because they all ran with ES20, as weird as it sounds, because they're all stuck on the old standards. We have the new standards, and that will change everything. Developers need to recognize this now. This is it.
That's absolutely amazing. One final question before David kind of wraps things up is, so you've played an instrumental role in the entire landscape. A lot of people owe a lot of things to you because of your visionary and your implementation on this. I know that you'll be back here when that day comes, but we're talking about what you're doing now. We've given you flowers for what you've done before, but what does the future look like for LUKSO? Like, you talk about innovation, but obviously, I'm sure like where's your next move? Where's the next move for LUKSO? We would love to hear that in closing.
So basically, for us, it is about building out the tools. Like with these new standards, there's a few more things you need to build, developer tools. There's a mobile app that's coming. So right now we have a browser extension, so it's like the better MetaMask, if you will. And soon there's a browser extension coming, so you can use universal profiles on mobile. We're building out all the kind of tooling. Universal Profile Cloud is getting better. We're really like on like building everything out and attracting developers and educating developers on what now can be built on top of this stuff. So it's the sky's the limit, really. I also want to say that we actually have a follow-up space, KeysDAO. They're one of our community DAOs, basically. Etherlorn is actually part of KeysDAO. They're doing a follow-up space. So if you're interested in talking more about this, you can actually join the space. It's pinned up there right now if you scroll up, and join the other space where we can talk more about this stuff. But it's on the end really about getting people aware of the tech, because we have built something that's we literally have the golden egg. People now need to understand that we have that and what they can do with it. That's really step one. And then there's lots more things coming that we can talk about in the future.
Fabian, so I don't want to interrupt. Can you tell the audience what you want from builders like myself? Like how can we use LUKSO to change the world?
I mean, if you basically, I mean, complicated question. There's so many things you could do, but basically, understand the standard. I mean, you don't need to understand everything because it's a little Bible. Understand, like, basically, okay, I can connect the same way I can connect to MetaMask, but this is how I read the profile information out. So now you can make your D app more interesting because it's social. You have now people with profile pictures. That's already great. If you like have an idea of what you need to be storing on a profile, you can store now any type of information you want on a user's profile. So it's not like a public key, which is just an address and nothing. Now you literally have a smart contract that you can attach information to. So now think of what you could do with that. Store any information you want on the user's profile. And now you can be literally read in any other app where the user is as well. So that's a big deal. Reputation systems, referencing the tokens they own, or referencing, the DAOs they're participating in, or whatever not. And yeah, I mean, there's so much to be built. You can build now key managers that enterprises can use, where literally real organizations can long-lasting control the same profile over like decades. Have the same address on chain, because I can properly manage this with role-based systems and permissions, something you could never do with a private key. Good luck managing a private key for in an enterprise, with more than 2 people. So you can literally now have everything. I mean, we wrote a white paper called The Blueprint for New Creative Economies in 2019, before the NFT wave. And we literally laid down all these ideas of, the creator economy and brands, how they're using blockchain and decentralized, fashion brands, and all the kind of stuff that's going to happen, and that can happen now. So the sky's the limit, really. I mean, there's so much to dive into as a developer. If you want to figure out the tech and understand, all the cool things you can do. Literally anything you wanted to build on Ethereum that had to do more than just with wallet connect and do some trading, you can now do. And before, it was kind of a user horror, so you couldn't do it, right? But thanks for the time, and thanks for the space. Also to David and K2.
Oh man, absolutely. And I think that's how we want to end it, everybody. We usually wrap these things up by asking for some last thoughts, but I don't think any other last thoughts will leave this on such a cliffhanger like Fabian just put out for us. But honestly, guys, you are some big brains up here in this space. Fabian literally made it so that we have the ability to trade meme coins. In my world, in my book, absolute blockchain royalty. We've got Mel over here talking about we're going to the moon, and I'm completely sold on that. I'm with you, Mel. Let's go. And then Fabian, someone else said we're fucked. And my mind's just going back and forth. But one thing I know is that I absolutely have to follow LUKSO_IO, because you do not want to miss what comes next. Fabian wrote the playbook, and he's going to continue to innovate on that and write new playbooks. Make sure you're following Fabian, Mel, Common, Delight, everybody up here. A panel full of legends. I appreciate everybody who came out today, all of the listeners for coming out, all of the speakers for coming up, Fabian for making it so that we are here in the first place. I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you all at the next Mario Nawfal in the Roundtable Spaces.
Thank you, everybody. Thank